Hi folks, and welcome to another video here at Live Long, Live Life. You're never supposed to know this. The companies that gave America lung cancer didn't die when cigarettes were exposed. They evolved. They evolved into food companies, into pharmaceutical giants, and into the very clinics that now treat the sickness they created. Cigarettes were never the real product. We were. First, they learned how to hook us with nicotine. Then they learned how to feed addiction to millions through ultra-processed food. And now they've built an industry that profits, not when we get better, but when we stay sick just long enough to need another prescription. Look around. Half our calories now come from lab-designed products that keep us hungry. 40% of adults are obese. Heart disease is still the #1 killer, even though statins are one of the most prescribed drugs in America. If the medicine worked, why is this country getting sicker? Because this isn't healthcare. This is a supply chain. Big tobacco, they built a craving. Big food made it normal. Big pharma, however, made it permanent. And the system taught us to blame ourselves, while it billed us for the damage they did. This is not a health crisis. It's a business model. And once you see it, you can never, ever unsee it. I want to tell you the story of how a population became inventory and how we can finally break the loop. Folks, until I understood how we got here, I had faith in the system. I had faith in our government. I had faith in our doctors. And I had faith in medicine. I thought that the FDA would protect us. Boy, was I wrong. Let me take you through a timeline that started in the early 1900s and take you through 100 years of corruption and 100 years of addiction. When you start to follow the money, it will all make sense to you. I have to be honest. It took me a while, but when I saw it, I was shocked. Shocked, but at the same time impressed at the perfect storm created by Big Tobacco and its scientists. They were good, really good. They created a country of addicts, and they want us to stay that way. It's time to break the loop. It's time to change the narrative. Let me take you back to the 1930s and 1940s, to a time when doctors weren't warning people about cigarettes. They were selling them. And not behind closed doors. I'm talking about full-page magazine ads. Big, smiling doctors in white coats proudly holding a cigarette like it was part of a medical routine. And one of the most famous ads literally said, "More doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette." Today that sounds insane. But back then, if your doctor smoked Camels, people assumed Camels must be the safe choice. Do you blame them? It's kind of like today when you tell your doctor you have high blood sugar and he tells you to take metformin or Ozempic. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Another brand, Lucky Strike, ran a huge campaign claiming, get this, 20,679 physicians say Luckies are less irritating. Sounds scientific, right? Well, here's what they didn't tell you. The tobacco company mailed doctors free cartons of cigarettes, then asked them in a survey, "Does this one feel smoother on your throat?" Doctor said, "Yeah, I guess it's smoother." And boom. The ad now declares thousands of doctors recommend Lucky Strike. Folks, that wasn't medicine. That was marketing dressed up as science. Philip Morris even pushed ads claiming their cigarettes could help with throat irritation. Yes, they literally marketed a throat-soothing cigarette. And the public trusted it because back then, doctors smoked in hospitals. There were ashtrays in waiting rooms. Magazine covers would show a doctor with a stethoscope and a cigarette. There was no Surgeon General warning, no health stigma. Nicotine addiction was being sold as sophistication. By the early 1950s, nearly half of all American adults smoked. Not because they were rebels, not because they were uninformed, but because they were told by trusted experts that the right brand of cigarette was practically doctor-approved self-care. Tobacco companies weren't just selling a product, they were selling authority. But then something happened in the 1950s. lung cancer cases started rising. Doctors, real ones, not the ones smiling in the ads, started asking questions. And the industry could feel the pressure coming. And that's when Big Tobacco made a decision that would change everything. They didn't apologize. They didn't back down. They pivoted. In January of 1964, the United States woke up to a sentence it was never supposed to hear. The Surgeon General stood before the nation and clearly stated, cigarettes cause lung cancer, heart disease, and death. For decades, cigarettes weren't just accepted, they were celebrated. Doctors endorsed them, athletes promoted them. Cigarette ads ran during family television. When that warning hit, the public saw danger. But tobacco executives saw something else. They saw a countdown. Once a product is officially linked to death, it loses its cultural power. You can still sell it, but you can't wrap it in glamour anymore. So behind closed doors, they didn't ask, how do we fix cigarettes? They asked, what replaces cigarettes? Because they were never in the cigarette business. They were in the addiction business. Let me say that again because this is important. They were never in the cigarette business. They were in the addiction business. In those boardrooms, there was no panic. There weren't men scrambling to save a dying product. These were strategists who understood human behavior better than any other industry on earth. Nicotine had been their greatest teacher. It taught them how to hijack dopamine. You remember dopamine, that part of your brain that creates feelings of pleasure, relaxation, and a mild euphoria. They had nicotine, and that triggered a rapid release of dopamine. Nicotine taught them how to sell a craving, not a product. Tobacco companies use nicotine's addictive power to make people crave and justify smoking, even though it harmed them, by controlling how much they smoked. And they did this by boosting nicotine levels to maximize dopamine release. And when dopamine came down, they reached for another dopamine fix. So once nicotine was publicly tainted, they went hunting for the next substance that could generate the same lifelong dependency, only this time without the stigma. It had to be cheap to produce, it had to be socially celebrated, not shamed, it had to be decades away from regulation, and most importantly, it had to create quiet dependency. No shaking hands, no yellow teeth, no smoke, just constant, socially acceptable consumption. That substance was sugar. Sugar had everything nicotine had except guilt. No warning labels, no Surgeon General speeches, no protests. Sugar wasn't consumed in back alleys. It was consumed at children's birthday parties. It wasn't suspicious, it was celebrated. They realized something dark. Nicotine made them rich, but sugar could make them untouchable. And so the quiet takeover began. In 1985, Philip Morris, the company behind Marlboro, bought General Foods for $5.6 billion. General Foods wasn't just coffee and condiments. It was Maxwell House, Jell-O, Kool-Aid, Oscar Mayer. These weren't just products. They were fixtures in American culture. That same year, R.J. Reynolds, the maker of Camel cigarettes, merged with Nabisco, the company behind Oreos, Ritz, Chips Ahoy, Fig Newtons. The same corporation that engineered nicotine addiction now owned Oreos. Grasp that for a second. And they weren't done. In 1988, Philip Morris made one of the largest corporate takeovers in American history. They bought Kraft Foods for $12.9 billion, and overnight they controlled Kraft. Mac and cheese, Capri Sun, Lunchables, Philadelphia cream cheese, Post cereals, and so much more. By the late 1980s, Philip Morris wasn't a tobacco company anymore. It was the second largest food corporation on the planet, operating under friendly, harmless names like Kraft and General Foods. No more cowboy logos, no ashtrays, just bright packaging, smiling mascots, and sugar in nearly every box on the shelf. Most people saw groceries. Tobacco companies saw delivery systems for addiction. Because once tobacco owned the food supply, something subtle but devastating happened. Snacks stopped being snacks. They became formulas. Before tobacco, sugary snacks were indulgent. But once the nicotine scientists stepped in, the purpose shifted. They weren't trying to satisfy hunger. They were trying to create repetition. Nicotine taught them a core truth. A satisfied customer stops consuming. An addictive customer never does. Fat satisfies, sugar does not. Fat triggers fullness. Sugar triggers dopamine. A fast spike, a fast crash, and a subconscious urge to repeat. It mimics nicotine withdrawal, a restless tug in the brain that whispers, just one more. Only now instead of lighting a cigarette, you reach for another cookie. Sound familiar? Well, it was my life in a nutshell before my eyes opened up. Cigarettes created visible addicts. Sugar created functional addicts. No smell, no stigma, just constant consumption all day long. It wasn't just an addiction. It was an addiction without shame. When big tobacco took over food, they didn't bring chefs. They brought behavioral scientists. Their job wasn't to cook. It was to manipulate reward for maximum dopamine effect. Enter what's called the bliss point, the perfect formula of sugar, salt, and fat, designed not for flavor, but for dopamine levels. Too little sugar and you stop eating. Too much and the brain shuts down. But the precise amount that triggers subconscious repetition, that became the formula. Bags of chips were no longer food. They were engineered dopamine loops. The moment when you look down and say, how did I eat the whole bag? That isn't a lack of discipline. That is the product working exactly as it was designed to work. By the late 1960s, some scientists were beginning to question sugar. Diabetes was rising. People were getting heavier. There was a moment, brief but real, where sugar was in danger of being exposed. The sugar industry and its corporate partners, many of them now tied directly to tobacco-owned food empires, responded the same way tobacco always had. They bought the science. In 1967, the Sugar Research Foundation paid Harvard scientists, I think it was around $6,500, and if you adjust it to today's value, about $50,000 to publish a paper blaming heart disease on fat, not sugar, fat. One of those scientists later helped draft U.S. dietary guidelines, and overnight, fat became the enemy. Low-fat labels exploded across grocery stores. Yogurt, cereals, snack bars, salad dressing, all advertised as low-fat and therefore healthy. What they didn't say was that fat was replaced with sugar and chemical sweeteners. People trying to be healthy cut butter, avoided eggs, and unknowingly tripled their sugar intake. They didn't get healthier. They got sicker. And then the metabolic collapse began. From the mid-1970s onward, obesity rates skyrocketed. Type 2 diabetes, once called adult onset diabetes because it almost never appeared in children, began rising in kids. People were tired. People were foggy, constantly hungry. They were snacking all day, never full, always hungry. The glucose spikes were insane. Their bodies weren't functioning properly. They were reacting exactly as they were supposed to react to highly processed foods made in a lab. It was food, but your body saw it as a foreign substance, and it reacted appropriately. People, however, blamed themselves. I have no discipline. I just love junk food. I'm just lazy. They never realized their system had been rewired by design. And when the body finally broke down, another industry stepped in. You guessed it, just in the nick of time. Enter Big Pharma. The same investment networks that own tobacco, that own food, now own shares in pharmaceutical giants like Pfizer, Eli Lilly, Merck, Novo Nordisk, the guys that own Ozempic, the companies behind insulin, statins, antidepressants, blood pressure pills, and Ozempic-style injections. It was never three industries. It was one system with three phases. Phase 1, hook the brain with nicotine. Phase 2, replace nicotine with sugar and create through science constant consumption. And Phase 3, profit from the damage with lifelong pharmaceutical management. They never wanted you cured. A cured customer doesn't buy. A managed customer pays monthly. Forever. And here's the most brutal twist. After all of this, people weren't even angry. They were ashamed. They believed that they had failed. They believed their bodies were broken. They believed they were the problem. That wasn't an accident. That was the final layer of control. You were never just a customer. You were the inventory. Your cravings fueled the cycle. Your breakdown was the opportunity. Your survival, managed through pills, injections, and low-fat snack packs, became the subscription model. And once you start identifying with your condition, I'm diabetic, I'm pre-diabetic, it runs in my family, I'll be on meds forever, that's when the system wins completely. Because now the addiction isn't just in the body, it's in the identity, it's in your mind. And because the most dangerous addiction in America isn't to sugar or cigarettes, it's to the belief that medication is the only path forward. For most of history, medicine had one purpose: to cure you so you can go back to your life. But somewhere along the way, that mission changed. Once big tobacco had successfully shifted addiction into food, and once sugar began breaking down the population's metabolic health, another industry stepped forward: pharmaceuticals. Not with a cure, not with prevention, but with management. And this is where the system reveals its final form. We weren't offered healing, we were offered a maintenance plan. Blood sugar rising? Take medication. Your cholesterol's up? Take medication. Mood swings, fatigue, fogginess, busted up metabolism? Take medication. Weight gain from processed food addiction? And now we have new meds to help you control your appetite. You see the pattern? The same corporations that created the sickness now sell you the relief. Not to end your dependency, but to transfer it from food to pharmaceuticals. You don't leave the system. You just switch products. And this marks the beginning of a new type of customer in America. Not a consumer, not a patient, but a subscriber. Locked into monthly refills, automatic reminders, talk to your doctor about commercials, all designed to make your condition feel permanent. Because let's not forget Big Pharma's motto: a cured person stops paying. A managed person pays forever. This entire system, from tobacco to sugar to pharmaceuticals, wasn't built to destroy you. It was built to own you. Because a dead customer doesn't pay, and a healthy customer doesn't pay. But a managed, controlled, tired but still functioning customer, they pay. That's the perfect product. You were never weak. You were never lazy. You were targeted. Your body has been reacting exactly as a $1 trillion system designed it to react. And that means something powerful. If your addiction was engineered, your escape can be engineered too. Not with another product, not with another hype diet, not with another prescription, but with awareness. See, once you see the chain, cigarettes to sugar to medication to your identity and finally to lifetime billing, you can start stepping off of the conveyor belt. You can stop being a statistic. And here's the part they never prepared for. An aware customer can never be fully controlled. So here's your call to action. If you're watching this and you feel it, not just in your head, but in your gut, then here's the move. Say it out loud, even one time. I'm not a patient of Big Pharma. I'm a recovering human being. Start breaking the chain where it began, with food. Not overnight, not with perfection, but with one conscious choice per day that isn't controlled by engineered cravings, what we call ultra-processed foods, and aware of CGM. And here's where we can win as a community. Share this knowledge like you're passing a key, not throwing a brick. Don't argue. Expose gently. Say, just look at who owns your food and who owns your meds. Plant the seed. Let their mind do the rest. That's what I hope I did today. This isn't about being anti-medicine or anti-food. This is about taking back control of your own body and your identity. From this moment on, stop calling yourself a patient. You're a person exiting a system that profits from your confusion. And once you step out, even just mentally, you become the one thing this machine cannot monetize, a fully awake and aware human being. If you're ready for that shift, comment this right now in the comments below. I choose awareness. That one sentence tells the algorithm you're not just watching, you're waking up. Share this on Facebook, on Instagram, on X, on TikTok. This system that we are stuck in hates that. Let's break the loop. Let's rewrite the narrative that we have been writing for the last 100 years. Let's break addiction and start getting healthy. Thank you all for making it to the end. Like always, please click on the logo and subscribe. See you in the next video. God bless you and stay healthy.